Hello and welcome to another edition of Conservative Corner. We are a monthly talk show based here at the wonderful new TV studios in Newton, Massachusetts. And what we do is we talk about issues of the day that affect our city, our state, our country. And while we can generally agree that Massachusetts and the community from which we're broadcasting are very liberal, we more or less have a niche, so to speak, in that we are not liberal. We are what we say we are. We are a conservative talk show, and we believe, and we have very good reason to believe, that we have many viewers, many followers, who want, shall we say, an alternative perspective to what we see, to what many of you see, with the local, state, and in many ways the national mainstream media, which is anything but conservative, with the exception of probably Newsmax and Fox News. Now, we're obviously not up to that caliber, but still we do provide an outlet for those of you who are interested, whether you're liberal or conservative or moderate, as to what the conservative perspective is pertaining to national, local, and state events. And this probably among, if not the most liberal, but among the top 3 liberal states in the United States, that being, of course, Massachusetts. And I say that with great authority in that I've been more or less in the Republican trenches for a very long time, in the loyal opposition, so to speak. And Massachusetts is a state which has 9 congresspeople, none of whom are Republicans. We have all the statewide positions are taken up by Democrats, since we're under a very liberal Democrat administration under one Maura Healey. It wasn't always like that. And just several years ago, we did have a Republican governor, and hopefully we'll have another Republican governor. But in the meantime, while that is the case certainly in Massachusetts, and really in New England as a whole, because in New England we have 23 congressional seats, none of whom are occupied by Republicans. We have 12 Senate seats. Only one is occupied by a Republican, that of course being Susan Collins, senator from Maine. But we do have 2 governors, that in New Hampshire, and you'll never guess the other state which has a Republican governor, and that is of course Bernie Sanders' own Vermont. So we are, shall we say, the liberal corner of the country, and if we can throw New York, maybe New Jersey into that fray, we are the liberal corner. But as you go across the United States, in many ways they call it flyover country, with the exception of Illinois, maybe Colorado, it's all red all the time, all the way to the left coast, the west coast, appropriately called the left coast. And everywhere in between is a red America, is patriotic America. Those people who voted for the President of the United States, one Donald J. Trump, and also for a Republican Senate and a Republican Congress. So Republicans dominate on a national level, and we're very glad that they do. It hasn't happened in a very long time, and I don't even think it may have happened briefly in the Reagan administration, and then the Trump administration it happened briefly, and we're very proud and happy about that. But in the meantime, we still work in our state and our Commonwealth of Massachusetts to try to get things moving in a Republican direction. And we try to do that as diligently as possible. We're not giving up on this state. We refuse to do so. And that being said, we try to keep the movement going, the Republican movement going, from all angles, from electing state reps to aldermen, city councilors, and hopefully we have a governor's race next year and a senator's race, hopefully another Republican governor and Republican senator. So that being said, there is, and has been for at least about a year and a half, a movement in this state called the MassMaga movement. And it's a very good organization, and it was done in conjunction with and was an integral part of the 2020-24 Massachusetts Trump campaign. Now granted, Donald Trump did not win in the state, but we did much better than in 2020 and in 2016. And the founder of that organization, whom we're very proud to have here tonight, is a gentleman named David Lopez of Stowe, who is the founder and who was instrumental in really getting the MAGA movement started and going in Massachusetts and in New England. Dave, I really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Tom. It's great to meet you again.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for the opportunity to be here.
The pleasure is all ours, really.
Great.
Now, granted, this is an off year, so to speak, for any type of politicking. And now we're into September. And so things start to rev up in September politically. However, again, there are no statewide elections and there are no national elections. People keep talking about the midterm, so to speak.
Yeah.
That's not until next year. Next year is a long way off. I mean, now we're talking 14 months.
Right.
Just over a year, and a lot can happen and change in a 14 months, which is an eternity politically. And there is a strong governor's race in the Commonwealth, and eventually we will have a Republican candidate against one Ed Markey, who really he should be retired by now since he was in office since he was 16, since I was 16 rather, and I'm not 16, I'm quite the opposite. But nevertheless, we do have local elections for selectmen, select boards, and city council, and also for school committee. And these are important positions. They really are, because, you know, as at the risk of quoting a Democrat, Tip O'Neill did say that all politics is local, and it's quite true. And we would like and hope to get people out for these local elections as much as possible. Now, this year, in the city of Newton, for example, and as in other cities, there are Republicans running for a mayor. And in our city in particular, where the studio is based, Al Cicconelli is running for mayor of Newton. This hasn't happened where we had a Republican Democrat in about 30 years. But still, people tend to zone out in off-year politics. So, so I'm going to ask you about the whole integral parts of MassMaga, but please, at a minimum, just tell us about yourself, where you came from and how you ended up doing this.
Great. Thanks again, Tom. So just a brief overview. I grew up in Central Square in Cambridge with a single mother who has done a wonderful job over the years. I stumbled, one of my early positions out of high school was literally in the mailroom of a firm called Kidder Peabody, which was a brokerage firm. Completely different world than what I was used to. That led to 30 years on Wall Street, great positions, stockbroker, financial advisor, director of training, vice president, global business development. I ended up getting an MBA eventually from Suffolk University, which led into an 8-year teaching career, second career. I taught entrepreneurship, small business management at Babson College and Suffolk University, and I'm also a certified business coach.
I like that you elucidated on your background for the public. Now, you and I both know that there are many people like you in the Trump movement and in the campaigns over the years. But our liberal counterparts tend to think of really a lot of the Trump supporters as being these yahoos from the hinterland, from Appalachia, this and that just like to be told what to do, and if Trump tells them to jump in a lake, they'll do it.
Right.
And that's not the case. And you know, they try to depict these people, wonderful people, they're simple but wonderful, as being the face of the Trump movement, as being the typical Trump supporter, but they're not. You are. You are. You mentioned Wall Street, and there are many, many people like you across America, which is why we won. I mean, you're the type of person that somebody can sit in a boardroom with, somebody can sit at a function with, or somebody who will be your neighbor. And many people who have voted for Trump are just like you. They live in the suburbs, they have wonderful homes, they have a wonderful life, and they may have a big house, a small house, or they live in a penthouse, whatever. But the point of the matter is that, and especially when you're engrossed in the campaigns over the years, as I've been and you've been, and especially you at the inauguration, which I attended, you really see the face of America there and who the people are. And that, you know, they're not the toothless poor soul from the plains of Texas or from the mud hills of Georgia. I mean, they're you, and people like you.
You know what the most exciting, well, I appreciate all the kind words, of course. The most exciting thing to me, Tom, is Gen Z at this point. As the vice chair for the Trump campaign last year, I was, as you know, I was pounding the table, Zoom call after Zoom call, that we have to focus on Gen Z. I've been fortunate enough to be an advisor for the Babson Young Republicans Club. There are 60 members of that club. So think about it. Now, Babson, you know, is a great institution, Suffolk, others as well. But the excitement for the party and for the movement and for the country, in my view, it's us, our age group, of course. We're here every day, working very hard. It's Gen Z. These are the young men and women at the college level, believe it or not, who are out there campaigning and just really representing their demographic.
Remind us, for the over
sure.
50 crowd, who Gen Z is approximately.
So depending on who you ask, right, Gen Z is 18 to 25, 26, 27, somewhere in that range. So that's a key demo, okay? They're in college, a lot of them, or they're getting into their careers slowly but surely. They have a huge amount of capital that they allocate, whether it's from parents or their jobs or, you know, however they come about it. So it's a buying force as well. And these young men and women are very inspirational.
And you know, what's interesting is that I don't know the percentages offhand as to what percentage of vote we got from this generation, Gen Z, as it's described. But it was much higher than it's been in past years.
Absolutely.
Much higher.
Yeah.
And that's an inspiration for us moving into the future, because as we see it, the future of America is really intertwined with the future of the Republican Party. So these young people who are in the college level now, they're entering a new era of prosperity. And after coming from a, shall we say, a brief era of general malaise through the Biden years, through the whole woke industry that permeated the country, well, that's over. There is no more wokeness. There is no more malaise. This reminds me of the Reagan administration, the first years of the Reagan administration, which went continuously on through George H.W. Bush following it. And it was a very good era to be in, to be a young person, and we're roughly the same age.
That's right.
To be growing up in that era. And now we're in a new era of American prosperity. And I would actually venture to say that this era, this new Trump era, leaving aside the first Trump administration, this new Trump era is really literally the golden age. It could be the golden age of America. Absolutely.
And you know, one of the privileges I had as far as being an advisor to the college Republicans was to educate them on the concept of the Republican Town Committee. They didn't really know what it was, the city committees as well. So I put together guess what, a PowerPoint presentation, former professor, you have to do it. But it was a quick little, maybe 2-3 slide deck on what an RTC is, kind of what the vision is, the opportunity with them. And one of the great rewards I had was actually having some of those students come back to me and said, hey, they still call me professor even though I'm retired, but hey, we attended a local RTC meeting to kind of audit it. And that was great. So a lot of that is happening. So to our RTC and RTC friends out there, please
Republican
reach out.
Town Committee, Republican City Committee.
Reach out to the Gen Z folks, because they're going to inject new blood, new ideas, new energy, and new passion to these local organizations, which then ties right into your earlier statement about participating locally, whether it's select board, finance committee, economic development, housing committee, whatever, or even the bench under the elected positions. That's where we're going to see some, in my view, some great growth of influence over policy in the years to come.
This is important, and what's very important equally is to get candidates to run for these local positions, and candidates with an R attached to their name. And sometimes, especially when it's all local for a school committee and city council, aldermen, whatnot, what tends to happen is people will vote for the so-called conservative Democrat or the unenrolled candidate. And what we say is, no, don't do it. Do not vote for Democrats. I don't care if he's your if this said Democrat is your sister's neighbor's brother,
Yeah.
don't do it.
Right.
Don't vote for the Democrat Party.
Right.
The Democrat Party nationally, to which these candidates choose to belong, has tried to really run this country into ruin.
Right.
And so our premise is vote for Republicans, only vote for Republicans. And if you don't have Republicans to vote for, well, write one in.
Right.
And that is, of course, if you can't find somebody to run, and if you can't find somebody to run, then you run.
Right.
It's not as hard as people think.
Right.
It's just a matter of, in these towns and cities, signing up, getting the requisite signatures to run for a certain position, and then getting people out to vote. And especially with the social media network these days, it can be done. We can do it.
Yeah, so thank you for that. So a couple of points on that, really important. I had the opportunity a couple of weeks ago to speak at a joint RTC meeting in Lynn and Saugus. So I did a 10 or 15 minute presentation on exactly what you're talking about, the opportunities at that level. And in case there's any RTCs out there that want me to speak, you can just go to MassMaga.com and get in touch with me. I'm happy to do it. But a very quick success story. As chair of the Stowe Republican Town Committee several years back, there was an open election. It was an off year, just like this year is, and we noticed about a month before the election in that November that there was a housing authority position that was no one was running for it. So one of my people came to me and said, hey, here's an opportunity. We actually convinced a member to run in a write-in campaign. We had 2 Facebook groups and a MailChimp email list. And we got that person elected with 21 votes. And at the last minute, our opponent, put somebody up. They only got 8. So the fact that it is an off year, I look at that as a huge opportunity because you can move the needle, so to speak, with like 10% of the voting.
And I'm glad you mentioned positions like head of the housing authority.
Yeah.
There are all these positions in addition to what I mentioned, like select board,
right.
that are there. You just have to look for them, and you
Right.
can win them.
Yeah.
You can beat the opposition. Now, I'll give you another example. And just because a community has the image of being die-hard liberal,
Yeah.
or a poor community or an immigrant community, doesn't mean you can't win. As a quick example, we have an individual on the state committee named Todd Taylor, who is actually a city councilor in the city of Chelsea.
Mm-hmm.
Chelsea is about as Democrat as they come,
Right.
like Lynn and like Boston. But he was able to win. Through his own due diligence, through his own smarts, through his own
Right.
hard work, he was able to win. So the point is, it can be done.
Absolutely.
It can be done in communities. Now, if somebody can win a city council position in Chelsea, they can certainly win
Right.
positions in other communities, like, for example, you mentioned Saugus and Lynn.
Yeah.
We actually have a state representative who's Republican from Saugus.
Right.
Now, he named Donald Wong,
I met
who
him.
also happens to be the proprietor of the very famous and very good Kowloon restaurant,
Yep.
but he's still a Republican in a mostly liberal community.
That's correct.
And Lynn can go that way, and other communities can as well.
Yeah.
And, as Republicans, we don't like to pigeonhole and talk about, shall we say, different ethnic groups and how they're voting. But
Sure.
in politics, you really have to. But
That's right.
one thing that we've seen over the past, in this past election, is the number of black votes that came our
Yeah.
way and the number of Hispanic votes. Now, you obviously have a Hispanic last
Yeah,
name,
yeah.
but you're also Italian as well.
That's right. That's
But
right.
still, when you have a Republican leader like Lopez leading people towards the Republican Party, that's a good image. That's a good
Thank you.
way to
Yeah.
be. And if you were to go to Lawrence and Bridgewater and other places and just announcing yourself, and they will relate to you, because people just tend to do that. Whereas if I were to go Mountain, I can give a good speech and hopefully bring people along. But
Right,
you
right.
give a good speech too, and you're able to
Appreciate it,
you're
yeah.
able to inspire people. But but I think that it's not so much the messengers that can bring people around to the Republican cause. It's the message that we have, and it's the track record. The fast track record, which we have built up just in the past 8 months with Trump. I don't know of any president and I was thinking about this earlier, since Franklin Roosevelt in 1933, that got off to such an amazing start in the past 6 months of his administration, the past 8 months of an administration. And it's really extraordinary, because if you think of what Trump has accomplished in that time, it's just, he's literally turned the page from the woke Democrats to the future, and to the future of America, and for all Americans, really. And it's such a good time to be an American now. We don't have to constantly look over our shoulders to, and we don't have to worry about the economy, worry about the world, worry about the future of our kids, worry about that. We don't have to worry anymore, because we finally have good, strong, competent leadership under Donald Trump, who, by the way, is the most prolific, accessible president in history. He will talk to anyone at any time. And he just is really a true inspiration. And again, this is only the past 8 months. If we fast forward to what it's going to be like in 4 years, the accomplishments will be amazing, especially if we keep Congress next year, and I'm convinced that we will. I can't see that people are going to go out and vote for Democrats. For what? What in the world are you going to get by voting for Democrats? I mean, they will just bring you back to the way it was 3 years ago, with high inflation, high gas prices, obnoxious wokeism. Vote Republican. That's the point.
But I look at, so I'm a business person, right? So entrepreneurship, professor, et cetera. I'll give you just one great example of what you're talking about, that from a business perspective. Back in 22, a few years ago, there was something called the CHIPS Act, which was Biden giving literally billions of dollars to various companies to develop chips. They gave a lot of money to a specific company called Intel. I'm not going to get too much in the weeds, but it's a great success story. Gives all this money to Intel. They don't do much with it. Trump recently brings the CEO into the Oval Office, comes out an hour later. We now, as a nation, have an equity position in Intel of 10%, which we didn't pay for. In other words, so what I'm getting at, instead of just giving money and hoping for the best, we gave that money, and then Trump said, oh, by the way, we're going to now take a 10% equity stake in Intel. I'm not recommending any stocks or anything like that, but that's a great example of a business mind coming in with economic development.
It's thinking out of the box.
And it's amazing stuff.
And because Trump is not a politician,
right,
and he's not from the swamp, as they call it. And the people that he's brought in are usually not politicians.
Big difference cabinet-wise this time versus last time.
Certainly. And and where Trump was in the wilderness for 4 years, I think that he and his key people had time to learn about their mistakes, what they did wrong the first term, and what they need to do the second term. And they really came out like thoroughbreds in a race, and really took the bull by the horns and moved things forward in a very good way. And this is going to continue. We're not wrapping up, but I want to get this in. This is the fastest 30 minutes in talk and cable TV, but I need to get this in because we run a very important event, and an important anniversary is coming up, and that is, of course, the anniversary of the 9/11, the September 11th bombings. And here in Newton suffered the second highest casualty rate, I believe, after the city of Boston, with the amount who were killed on that tragic day. So we have a big memorial service on September 11th at 6 p.m. in Newton Center. It's right there. We've been doing it every year since a memorial that was set up, which we set it up. When I say we, I mean members of the community, but it was members of the Republicans, and we don't take credit for it. Our name is not associated with it, or you don't see an R next to the memorial. It's for the people. So that will be coming up again September 11th at 6 p.m. Other communities will also have their events.
I'm sure.
And they'll be at various times throughout the day. But this is something, and at the risk of sounding immodest, and I try not to be, I'm the MC for that this year, and we have a rotating position in that. And Sandy Young, the founder of that memorial, is the producer of the show, and has done wonderful things. She's in the studio as we speak.
Nice.
So that being said, I'm very optimistic about the Republican Party and in the future. On a national level, and I'll be honest, on a statewide level, we're trying real hard. And make no mistake about it, we are trying real hard.
Yeah.
But on a national level, we're now at 53 Senate seats.
Yep.
And I believe we're up by 7 in Congress. And especially with what happened in Texas, we're going to be up by more.
Yep.
So we need to get a comfortable margin. And the important thing is that people have to get out and vote and don't assume that your vote doesn't count, because it really does.
And that's why I started MassMaga.com, Tom. So MassMaga.com ties into everything that you're saying. It's a website that's a resource for candidates. It's a podcast that's monthly, and it's an X account as well. So if anybody wants to, help and be part of the community.
How do they find you?
So it's www.massmaga.com. On X, it's MassMaga GOP, and there's a YouTube channel by the same name with all the podcasts as well. I'm
impressed. I mean, usually fellow people of our age, the over 60 crowd, are not so well-versed.
You gave it away. You gave it away.
I'm not so well-versed in social media like that. I certainly am not. But you are, and it's important. You don't have to run to the 20-year-olds to set things up. But it's the 20-year-olds who really are the future of this party.
That's Gen
on
Z.
the college campuses, and they have to know that the future of America rests with the Republicans.
Yeah.
We're the future, they are not. And I will dare to say that it will continue on in 2028 with a Republican president, just as it did with Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan begat George H.W. Bush, and I'll make a prediction now. Donald Trump will begat J.D. Vance, and he will be the president in 2028. Who in the world do the Democrats have to offer? Gavin Newsom? Are you kidding me?
No way.
And people of that ilk?
Yeah.
They're not going to fall for the Brill Cream, puffed hair guy. It's not going to happen, or people like that. We are really the future. We are the present. We are the future of this country, and we've taken our country back.
Yeah.
And we're not going to give up the reins of power easily. We're working diligently all the time. And in this particular realm and in this venue, we're working as well, and I'm not ashamed to say that we are a partisan show, and here we are. So, that being said, as I mentioned, it's the fastest 30 minutes in talk TV, and I'm very glad that you're here, and we'll have to have you come back again.
Thank you so much for the
thank
opportunity.
you for making the trek down here in this lovely day. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Tom.